Welcome to the SDA Housing Podcast, brought to you by NDIS Property Australia. Before starting this episode, we need to provide a general disclaimer. Information contained in this podcast is general in nature only. It does not take into account the objectives, financial situation, or needs of any particular person. You need to consider your financial situation and needs before making any decisions based on the information in this podcast. And you should consider seeking independent and professional advice for your personal circumstances. All right, let's begin.
Hello everybody, my name is Minh and I'm your co-host today with Matthew and Debbie in the office from NDIS Property Australia here in Brisbane, and you're listening to the SDA Housing Podcast, a show that explains, highlights, guides and brings awareness about all things SDA in this ever-changing NDIS world. Today's topic internally is the topic land and build to order. So Matt, take it away.
Yeah, so we receive a number of inquiries, I suppose, from our investors from time to time, just relating to, obviously, as kind of our business, we sell a lot of home and land packages. We do a lot of developments, but we also have the option for clients to potentially build on their own block, do a knockdown and rebuild, or purchase a block and build on that. So the purpose of this podcast is to kind of discuss what's required to do that, things to be aware of, and just moving forward, what the best approach to do that is.
Okay, so guys, we do get a lot of queries and we have to ask our potential investors, potential block owners, to send us through details. Quite a lot of information actually that's required by our builders. So we wanted today to clarify what that information is and why it's needed. So to start with, we ask for surveyor plans or disclosure plans. So why do we need those?
Well, that's just to show how level or flat or slopey the block is. In Melbourne, they call it engineering reports, Debbie. So engineering reports is called contour plans or disclosure plans or engineering reports.
Or surveyor plan, plan.
So these survey plans show that it is flat and level. It shows the width and length of the block, and it gives the builder comfort that it's going to be a flat block if it's not titled and registered yet. And then they'll be able to do the design of the block on the block. Yeah, that's the first thing. Yeah,
and I feel like that's important in terms of building an NDIS property, to make sure that if you're building, say, a HPS, you're building it on a flat block. You're building on a block which could be certified as a HPS or FA property when it goes ahead. That way, you're not wasting all your time.
We've had situations in the past, Matt, where people say the block is flat, and it is, but the driveway is very steep. So it must be flat from the road to the driveway to the block.
Very flat.
Yeah.
Extremely flat.
Yeah.
Design, guidelines and easements. What's that about?
Matt?
I don't actually know.
No, you don't. Matt's only kidding. He's not joking. So the easements are, sometimes we have sewers underneath the land.
Yep.
Or drainage and the things that you
can't. Or a manhole in the backyard.
You can't build over it. So the council regulations say you can't build over those easements, right? Could be a power, something underneath the ground, yeah, and the council won't allow you to build over it. So that's an easement. What else did you say, Debbie?
Design guidelines.
So the design guideline, or I think what you mean there, Matt, is building covenants. So every estate, if it's a brand new estate, it'll have building guidelines. So the estate land developer will say, we want brick facade, like two front facades, like a brick and a render. You want colour-bond roof only. The setbacks are as follows. So there are build rules in the estate to say you must build to the standard in the estate. Otherwise, it's going to be everyone does it whatever they want in construction-wise. So the building guidelines or covenant guidelines is relevant towards the block. Now, if it is a established block somewhere, there is no build guidelines because it's not an actual estate, so not relevant there. Yeah.
I feel like most of our investors would be buying in new estates though, so it would be relevant. Yeah.
The address, lot number, which I think is quite obvious why we would need that.
Well, it'd be quick for us to assess on Google Maps. Just the address and see what's on the street is actually in a new estate or whatever.
Also allows us to just give you advice on whether it's a good location to build.
Yeah, exactly.
If there's hospitals nearby, related amenities, which would impact the SDA.
We often ask for the address and photos as well. If you have some photos of the block, it'd be nice as well.
Very helpful.
Yeah. What else is there, Debbie?
Existing buildings on the block, are they to be removed? So sometimes people might have a fairly large block. It might have a couple of dwellings, like the main house and possibly a granny flat. Maybe the main house is going to be demolished. They're looking at possibly building an SDA dwelling on it, leaving the granny flat, or if it's just one building, or if it's an empty block, even if it's in a greenfield area. So obviously we need to know what's there, what's going to stay, what's going to go.
Some of our builders specialise in knockdown rebuilds. Some don't. Some just want to build on a brand new empty block of land in the estate, and that's it. They don't touch anything else. So, yeah, as we've covered in the past podcast with Robert, knockdown rebuilds or building in established areas are a bit of a headache because of traffic control and demolition permits and all that kind of stuff. Just a bit messy, that's all, yeah.
And we also need to know ideally what you would like to build on the block.
I feel like that's a question which is more related to all other podcasts. But sometimes when we are approached by someone who wants to build, they will just simply say, I want to build an NDIS property. And obviously you need to be aware of, as we've talked about ad nauseum in previous episodes, just the area you're building in, what's nearby, what would be best in terms of the participants in the area. And then going back to what we were mentioning earlier, in terms of the block, is it too hilly to do a HBS? It's too hilly to do a FA. You'd have to go with IL or robust.
So this is what you call an investor-led package, right? And we all know that an investor-led package is where the investor brings a block of land and not the other way around. And if they bring it along, it's up to them to do the homework. Is an area of demand? Are there providers there? Are there participants there? I mean, we don't know that. That's your block. This is your area. Normally, in an ideal world, stock or dwellings for SDA are created via developers, builders, and providers who collaborate together to say, we've done the homework, we've done the research, we think this will be an ideal robust or FA or IL or HBS house in this area, and here is the product. Whereas in this case here, investor-led, Debbie, what's the negatives of investor-led?
Well, that there is no demand in the area. And as much as you might want to build an SDA dwelling, you're not going to get a tenant. So really, we would obviously advise you against possibly doing that. Reconsider it.
So potentially no participants in the area, potentially no support workers in the area, potentially no endorsement by providers because they know they already have too many houses in the area.
Yep.
So these are all the responsibility of the investor to find out, not us, because we didn't bring the block to the party.
Yes.
We get people coming with blocks of land in, for example, Logan here in Brisbane, and we know Logan has been pretty well overdeveloped at this point in time with SDA, so that's somewhere that we would probably say, well, you might need to reconsider because we know that there's not going to be a demand.
Only if you build robust or IL and not HBS.
That's right. Depends on what you want to build. So, and I guess the other aspect of what you want to build is if you're coming with a larger block, if you have the funds, you might want to be looking at doing, say, a group of villas rather than just a single or a dual key.
Yeah. Duplexes and dual keys are probably more the ideal product, Debbie. Robust, gives separation of living space between participants. But as you know, it costs more to build these things.
And if you're doing villas, I'm assuming you'd want a project manager.
Yeah, exactly.
The title and status, registration status of the block.
So obviously that's important because it dictates when the builder can actually be in work on the block. And in some cases, they are looking the builder would ideally like to build on a block which is already titled, ready to go, so they can be sure that you're actually keen to move on it, that you're not just all talk, I suppose.
Yeah, well, but also, Matt, build to order in this scenario is, if it's too far off, you can't guarantee workers, being the bricklayers, the roofie, the chippies. You can't guarantee they'll be there in about 9 months' time. Yeah. So the further out something is, the harder it is for someone to plan a project of construction, which takes a year. It's just hard to do that, that's all.
Yeah, block topography, which I guess we've sort of covered with the surveyor plans. But yeah, if there is some sort of a slope or a hill on it, then we need to know in order to determine what could be built on the block. But another thing we would need to know, certainly in certain areas, is the presence of power lines in the street.
Because we do work with one builder in Victoria which is into the manufactured housing factory construction design process and construction process, and they won't build it where there's power lines, where they're bringing cranes in and big trucks and cranes to lift up pods and everything. So we're seeing a tendency in the construction industry in SDA to move towards prefabrication, modular builds, right, and manufactured housing, due to lack of workers, lack of workforce, lack of supplies of timber, and build times. We're seeing alternative construction methods rolling out now around Australia. We're hearing more and more of modular and prefab for SDA. Yeah. Watch this space, I guess. In the coming year or 2 years, we'll see more and more builders delivering that kind of product out there. So in summary, I guess, it's really survey plans, building covenants, address, photos, soil tests.
I was just going to say soil tests, I believe, is another aspect, which is not part of the engineering plans, or is it?
Again, that's a Melbourne topic, but normally it'd be nice to actually have soil tests. The builders still do their own soil tests anyway.
So it's more of indicative of what your end price might end up being.
So as much information as possible to be given to us to hand over to a builder that we may be working with, or your builder you're working with, is relevant, okay? And remember, if you're giving all this information over, the builder's going to think you're going ahead with business. Like it's a lot of work for them to take on this information to do a quote and design and contracts and whatnot. So be sure that if you're going to come with a block of land, you already know what you're doing with regards to SDA and construction, because it's all go from that moment on. Yeah, particularly finance as well. Yeah.
So I suppose in summary, do your research on the location. Make sure you're aware of what you want to build. Is there supports in the area? Is there providers and sills in the area? Is it an area where there's demand? What does the block look like? What can you build on it? When's it coming up? When is it titled? And then moving forward, obviously, as something else we've also probably need to mention is obviously the price, and just can you afford to build this?
Price and finance. Are you ready?
Do we have a sort of a rough indicative guideline of what a build would cost? Various areas of Australia?
Minimum 450.
Minimum 450, I'd say.
Maximum 650. So between that range, 550, give or take 50 is the official answer, I guess, Matt.
Yep.
Okay, well, I think that pretty much covers
what you need to bring along if you want to have an assessment on your block of land. Yeah. Cool. Anyway, thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please make sure you are subscribed and following us so you can keep in the loop with all of our upcoming episodes. We would really appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star rating, a written review, and to share this podcast with those that could benefit. Until next time, catch you on the next episode.